friends. We are here in the first chapter of 2 Corinthians. And this book is different from 1 Corinthians. The book of 1 Corinthians was basically a letter of correction. You know, they had all these questions and he was giving answers, and there was these issues and he was going off like a list. And at the end, you know, if you watched yesterday, you might know that he said, look, I'm planning on coming to you and take up a collection. I'm going to bring it to the church in Jerusalem. Or, you know, it says Judea, and Jerusalem's in Judea, but it probably maybe wasn't in Jerusalem proper. I don't know, but he says Judea. Anyways, he did that. He came, and we don't know this from the book. I should say that we know from history that he did come through, and that he came to the church, and all these things that he was correcting, he was maybe hoping that these issues might have gotten better. But what he found was that the church was in much worse shape than he had thought. That there was just overt heresy going on in the church. You know, people that were teaching the gospel that was very different from the gospel that he was preaching. And so he is saying, you know, he basically came to them and told them what they were doing wrong, and they didn't like it. And so there was kind of like an uprising, like a mutiny in the church. And so after this happened, Paul just said, you know, I would like to stay and fight this out, but you know, it looks like I'm not welcome here. And so he left. And he didn't leave because he doesn't love them. He wasn't just saying, you know, he wasn't just saying like, oh, forget you. And we know that from reading this letter. And I think that's the most interesting thing about this letter. When you read it, it kind of shows that something that I kept mentioning before, that Paul really loves the church in Corinth. And he doesn't want to leave it. He doesn't want to leave it ever, you know, but it looked like God was telling him at that time, just walk away. And so he did. And so Timothy went there later on, and there's another letter in between 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. We'll call it Corinthians 1.5. And when he wrote that letter, it was, you know, more correction. It was probably maybe a little harsher than this letter. But when Timothy came there, he basically told Paul, you know, things have gotten a lot better. You know, you're still probably not the most welcome person there, because there's a lot of people that are still against Paul. You know, the people that were wrong, you know, the people that were probably had the more power in the church there. But he said things, you know, the things that you had said, you know, the corrections that you did, it actually got better. So Paul is writing this letter basically saying how much he loves the church there in Corinth. And so he's talking about his sufferings. You know, he greets, it's him and Timothy that are writing this letter. And he's saying, you know, the sufferings that you're going through, God basically, he comforts us in our sufferings so that we can also comfort other people. So because the Holy Spirit can comfort us, we can also comfort other people. And he's just telling them that. Now, the ESV Study Bible says that at some point, the church in Corinth, when they were against Paul, one of the criticisms that they had toward him was that he was going through suffering. Therefore, he must not be really led by the Spirit, because if the Spirit was leading him correctly, he wouldn't be going through sufferings. It kind of sounds like a prosperity church today. You know, like if the Holy Spirit's guiding you, then why isn't your life just perfect? You know, some churches teach that it should be, but you know, they're not really understanding basically any story in the Bible. They're really just trying to get people to go to their church. But he is saying, we go through these sufferings, and he even says, when we were in Asia, we despaired to the point of death. But he's saying, but God comforts us, and God can use that so that we have compassion for other people. And we don't really know exactly what the issues were between Paul and the church, but we can make some deductions. And it sounded like they thought that Paul may not be, committed to the church because he's not there enough. And so he also writes, when I came through before and I wanted to spend time with you. We know because it's in what we call 1 Corinthians, and he's saying, was I vacillating when I said that I wanted to come there and then I wanted to come back there again? And he says, no. He says, it's not like I'm saying, well, yeah, to this, no to that, like I'm saying yes and no at the same time. And he's saying, through the grace that God has given me for the church in Corinth, it's always yes. He's stating here that even though the church in Corinth has basically been the worst to Paul, you don't have this relationship with any other church when you read the New Testament, but he's saying, for you, my answer is always yes. He's stating again, even though you are awful, I still love you so much. And so that's what's going on here in the first chapter of 1 Corinthians. So, I hope you'll stick with me for the rest of this book. I want to state that this is my wife's favorite book in the New Testament, and partially because of the comforting that it comes from this book, and the love that Paul has for this church, even though they're not very loving to him. So anyways, hope you have a great day. Bye-bye. Hello. I just wanted to say one more thing, and that is that when Paul is talking about the sufferings that we go through and being comforted by God, I really think that applies to everyone. Sometimes you can go through suffering and you can wonder, why am I going through this? And you can know that Jesus went through it, Paul went through it, and you're going through it. And there can be good, and there probably will be good that will come from it. If nothing else, it will change your heart so that you can be more compassionate to the world around you. And it might be that God is showing you something, but you should also know that the Holy Spirit comforts you, and that you should be comforted by the Holy Spirit. So I just wanted to add that, because sometimes I feel like I talk about the history and I forget the main point of the passage. All right, have a great day. Bye.